Good evening, Gills fans, and welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV for our latest episode. It has been announced the Gillingham Football Club retained release list has been published in the last couple of hours. So I'm going to run through those that have been offered new deals, those that haven't, and give my thoughts on each individual. I will start with those that have been offered new contracts, and the first batch of players that have been offered new deals are coming up on your screen right now. That is, of course, those youngsters that signed professional contracts in the last couple of years. Finn O'Mara, Aaron Simpson, Ben Chapman, Darren Oldacre, Bradley Stevenson and Nolan Bow have all been offered new terms. We don't know what those terms are, that's not been published. For me, the majority, I think, are the right decision. I would have offered Finn O'Mara, Aaron Simpson, Ben Chapman and Darren Oldacre 1-year deals. I think they're worth persisting with. It's been a very good couple of years in terms of youngsters coming through the system, which is good to see. You wouldn't want another situation like Marlon Romeo, which happened a couple of seasons ago, where we released him and he's since gone on to excel in the Championship with our dear friends Millwall. So in terms of those 1, 2, 3, 4 players, quite happy to see them offered new contracts and hope that they do stick around and we see how they continue to progress. The other two, Nolan Bow, Bradley Stevenson, I did do this list a month or so ago and went through each individual player and what I thought of each. I genuinely cannot remember what I thought at the time of Bradley Stevenson or Nolan Bow in terms of offering them a new deal. So for me, that probably indicates that I'm not that fussed that whether they stay or go. But like the others, we shall see. They've been offered new terms. If they sign, they'll get my full backing, whether that's in the first team or not. They are Gillingham football players. I'm a Gillingham football supporter, so they will get my backing. But in terms of Bow and Stevenson, I'm not really sure where they fit in too much. A lot of people have bandied Nolan Bow about for a few years now, but he's still a kid. I don't think he's ready for the first team, and he's probably about 4th or 5th choice at the moment. But on to those more senior players that have been offered contracts, and that is this bunch coming up on your screen right now. Those pictured in that graphic are Gabriel Zakuani, Ben Nugent, Bradley Garmston, Mark Byrne, Elliot List, Thomas Hadler and Navid Nasseri. I think it's great news that all of them have been offered terms. When I did my list, I would have offered Zach 2 years myself. I know he's in his 30s now, but I think he was absolutely superb last season. Mr. Consistent, counted the amount of bad performances he had on probably 2 fingers. Ben Nugent, happy that he's been offered a year. I think he's a suitable backup centre-half. I'm not showing his first choice. Obviously, Gabby and Max Amar were very, very good together as a pairing last season for the majority, especially during Steve Lovell's tenure after he come on board in October. So I would imagine they would be first choice if Gabby signs a new deal. But let's not forget we've got Alex Lacey. If we can get him fully fit for the new campaign, that'd be great, because I think he's got all the tools to excel at this level. So for me, if we can get Gabriel Zakuani and Ben Nugent to pen a new deal, then I think we've got a good set of 4, a really good blend in terms of centre-backs. Next on the list is Bradley Garmston. another tricky season in terms of injuries, but he got more games than he did the previous campaign, which is good to see. So fingers crossed he can stay fit. I would imagine he's probably only been offered a year's deal. That would be what I'd have offered if it was up to me. And then maybe after 6 months, if he's proved his fitness and playing regularly, then we could look at maybe extending it or boosting it or whatever. But for me, a good idea to keep Bradley Garmston at the football club if possible. On his day, one of the best left backs in the division. But again, that only comes from playing regular games and getting into a rhythm, and obviously then getting into some consistently good form. So hopefully he'll stay on. Mark Byrne next, another key one for me. Simply have to do all we can to keep him. He was first class all last season. Deservedly won awards at the end of season player do. I would have offered him 2 years. Don't know what the club have, but for me, we have to do all we can to keep Mark Byrne at the football club because he's come on leaps and bounds. As I said on a vlog a couple of weeks ago, he's added goals to his game as well now. 1 goal of the season. Well, he won pretty much everything, so there's a reason for that. So yeah, let's fingers crossed that the burner can stay. Elliot List was one throughout the season that I wasn't sure about. He's sort of been on the periphery now ever since he's joined 2 or 3 summers ago. I said last season we had to kick on and get more games. Didn't quite happen to start with, but he ended the season really strongly. And I think we said on the match day vlog when we battered Plymouth on the final day that the goal he scored in that game and the one the previous week at Bristol Rovers may have earned him a new deal, and it looks that way. He's been offered new terms, got no issue with him staying. Pace is a threat at this level, I've said that over and over again. He still needs to improve his final ball and his decision making, but the signs are there that he's starting to do that. The goals will do him good in terms of confidence, so fingers crossed we can get Liz to sign a new deal and then start seeing the best of him on a more regular basis next term. And the final 2, Tom Hadler and Navid Nasseri. Tom Hadler was a no-brainer again for me. I thought he was very unlucky to concede 3 on his debut. I didn't think any of the goals were really his fault. I said at the time that the first Blackpool goal I thought was maybe slightly his error, but when looking back on the highlights, it looked like it took an abnormal bounce before hitting him in the chest. But he didn't do a lot wrong in that game. We didn't see him again, but I think we'll get a proper look at Tom Hadler in pre-season. He's number 2 now, challenging Thomas Holy for that number 1 jersey. So a great decision, I think, to get him to stay at the football club, hopefully. And Navid Nasseri, I can't disagree with that either. I thought he showed some really bright bits in his short stint at the club after joining in January. Scored his first goal at home to MK Dons the day before Good Friday, and was generally bright. Even on the Monday when we got absolutely tonked at Southend, he come on 4-0 down to 10 men, and he wanted the ball. He didn't shy away from any responsibility. So be good to see him, and hopefully he signs and then we get a proper look at him and he benefits from a real pre-season and we get to see the best of him next season as well. So that is those that have been offered deals and my thoughts on it. Let's now have a look at the 7 that have not been offered new terms, and they are coming up on your screen right now. Those shown there in that graphic are Jake Hessenthaler, Greg Cundall, Lee Martin, Aaron Morris, Frank Musa, Reece Murphy and Scott Wagstaff. I'm going to start with the first one, the anomaly, Jake Hessenthaler. I think it's thrown us all as Gills fans, to be quite honest. It's been confirmed that he's been released at the end of his contract, yet we were all under the impression that his contract ran until the summer of 2019. Seems there's been an error somewhere, whether it was from the club at the time of the contract being signed, which other websites and social media outlets then latched onto and went with the same information. But the club have confirmed that he signed the 4-year deal in February 2014, so it ran until effectively the end of this season. I'm not sure it's the right decision. I'll be honest, I thought he was generally decent this previous campaign. Played a lot of games. I thought him and Mark Byrne done a lot of donkey work when there was not many other options to go in there with them until Callum Riley come on board, and they may have suffered for that. Their form may have dropped off a little bit over periods of time, but that was probably more to do with the fact that we didn't have any options in there, so they was having to play a lot more games than others. But I'd be sad to see Jake Essenthaler go. I know plenty won't. That's their call. But you know what you get with Jake. He's a central midfielder. He works hard. He's tidy in possession. Does exactly what he says on the tin. I'm sure he'll get another club in League One or League Two. And I'll be disappointed if he didn't, to be quite honest, because I think he's been a good servant for the club over the last few years. We all remember that goal at home to Coventry from the halfway line when he was just a kid. But Jake moves on, and we wish him all the best. Greg Cundall, for me, 100% the right decision to let go. I've said numerous times, I don't know whether he's a striker, I don't know whether he plays in behind. Doesn't seem strong enough to play with his back to goal and link play. Doesn't seem quick enough to run in behind. There was a comment, I think, from Steve Lovell or someone a few months ago that said he finishes like Harry Kane in training. Well, training doesn't win you football matches, unfortunately, and that may be a bit harsh, but he's one that's been in and around the first team squad for a few years now, and he's no closer to becoming a regular. So for me, 100% the correct call. Again, wish him well. Hope he goes and gets himself a club and does well. Lee Martin, the captain from last season. Wrong call for me. We missed him, but we didn't realise how much we missed him until he wasn't in the side, either through suspension or injury or illness. And it was frustrating towards the end of the campaign because under Steve Lovell, he'd been really good, very consistent in terms of goals, assists, performances. Silly red card beginning of the season before Steve took over, and then a silly red card at the end of the season at Southend. But some of the abuse that he took from some fans is absolutely ridiculous. It's just thick, in my opinion. And there was a whisper going around that perhaps he was going to leave because of the abuse he was getting, and he felt it was unjust, and that may be the case. Yeah, the wrong decision for me, but there might be underlying circumstances that obviously we're not aware of as fans. So all the best, Marts. It's been a pleasure the last 2 years. Unfortunately, you missed a lot of football because of that horrendous injury, but you've done great to come back from it. The next one, Aaron Morris, a little bit heartbreaking. He's missed 2 full seasons with what seemed to be 2 very serious knee injuries, and he was never going to get a new deal, unfortunately. Very good footballer on his day, but for me, it wouldn't be that surprising if he ends up retiring from the game, unfortunately. Next was Frank Musa. This is one that I'd have taken a chance on. I'd have given him a year. We know what he brings in terms of pedigree at this level from his time at Leicester and Walsall and Coventry before that. But unfortunately, since coming on board in January, he's just not got enough football. Excuse me. He's missed the last few weeks with injury. I think we've only seen 2 cameos from him. He got 20 minutes at Wigan and 45 minutes at home to Blackpool, I think it might have been, or Doncaster. Don't hold me to that. And he looked bright in both. But simply he's not had enough football, so you can understand why Steve Lovell's decided to let him go. But for me, it would have been one that I'd have perhaps offered a year to, because of the fact that we know how good he can be at this level. Reece Murphy, no surprise at all. We just haven't seen him. He's played 45 minutes in the league and got hooked at half time after that. And we didn't see him again, so no surprise that he's gone. And the last one, Scott Wagstaff, has been released. Probably one of the best players in League One on his day, but he's been hindered for 2 years by niggly injuries and just periods out of the side, unfortunately. So again, you might be able to say you can understand why Steve Lovell has decided against offering Scott Wagstaff a new deal. But to counter that, you could say the same about Bradley Garmston, and he has been offered a new contract. So maybe for me it comes down to wages and what him and maybe even Lee Martin are earning to a degree. And the hope is that if they are on decent whack in terms of a weekly wage, that it gets reinvested and we can bring in a few good players on slightly less that will improve the squad. Right, that's everyone covered. Be an interesting summer again, because I think we've only got about 8 or 9 people contracted at the football club now. So hope that a few of those that have been offered new deals do stick around, especially the likes of Gabby Zakwani, Bradley Garmston, Mark Byrne, etc. Now, obviously, we look forward to finding out who we try and bring in these times of new ones. One that I would definitely try and pursue would be Callum Riley. There's talk that he might be available from Bury, his parent club. Obviously, there may be a fee involved, but I think we should do all we can to get him back to Priestfield because he was very impressive on loan for the second half of last season. Very instrumental in that run that took us to the verge of talking about the playoffs before the form tailed off towards the end of the campaign. Yeah, it's done. We cannot change it, regardless of what we think on those that are being let go and those that are being retained. I suppose we judge it more on who comes in as replacements, and then we can have a better idea of how we're going to be next season. But as always, thanks for watching, thanks for all your support, and until next time, up the Gills.